I still remember that morning like it was yesterday. The rain was coming down in sheets, cold and steady, washing the whole city in gray. And there I was, standing in line for the old Route 14 bus in Chicago, wearing a jacket that looked like it had survived a decade too many. Nobody gave me a second glance, which was exactly the point. They had no idea I was the guy who owned 3 downtown towers and had more money in the bank than I knew what to do with. I didn't want them to know. I just wanted to feel something real again. 3 weeks earlier, I'd buried my mother. After the funeral, my penthouse felt like a museum, huge, silent, and cold. I tried going through the motions, board meetings, polite handshakes, dinners at places where the menu doesn't even bother printing prices. But I was empty. My therapist said, "Go back to where you came from, put your feet on the ground." That's how I ended up on that bus, trying to remember the boy who once clutched his mother's hand riding to school while she worked 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. The bus was packed that morning, everybody damp from the rain, the smell of wet coats and coffee filling the air. I stayed standing, one hand on the rail, pretending I was just another guy counting quarters. That's when I saw her. A young woman, maybe 24, squeezed her way in, carrying a beat-up leather bag and a pile of folders clutched to her chest, like they were treasure. She had this look about her tired eyes, but a bright spark in her smile, like she wasn't about to let life grind her down. An old man with a cane was swaying dangerously near the back. Without a second thought, she tapped his shoulder and said, "Sir, please take my seat." He hesitated, but she insisted, steadying him as he sat down. I just stood there watching her, feeling something stir in me I hadn't felt in years. In my world, kindness usually came with a contract attached. This was different, pure, uncalculated. The bus jerked over a pothole, and that stack of folders she carried spilled like confetti across the floor. "No, no, no," she whispered, scrambling to grab them before shoes trampled over the pages. I dropped down beside her, scooping up papers. When I handed one back, I noticed the heading job applications. She looked up, rain in her hair, cheeks flushed. "Thank you. These are my only shot at something better." We talked quietly between stops. She said her name was Elena Carter, though everyone called her Ellie. She worked nights at a diner, weekends at a corner store, and still couldn't keep up with rent. She wanted to finish her business degree, but tuition was a mountain she couldn't climb. And still she smiled at me like hope was stitched into her skin. When she caught sight of my wristwatch peeking out from under my sleeve, she smirked. "Kind of fancy for the city bus. Don't you think I lied and said it was all I had left from my father?" She didn't press, just nodded with a softness that made me want to keep talking. But then her stop came. She hoisted her bag, wished me luck, and disappeared into the rain. As the bus pulled away, I felt my mother's voice echo. "Always notice kindness, Leo. It's rarer than gold." That's when I made a decision. I wasn't going to let this girl's light burn out in the shadows of the city. That night, back in my penthouse, I called my chief of staff, Nora. "I need everything you can find on a woman named Elena Carter," I told her. Nora paused, suspicious. "Leo." Why I didn't answer. Some things were too raw to explain. I just added, "And tomorrow send a car for her after her diner shift. Nothing flashy. Tell her it's for a scholarship interview." The next day, a sleek sedan rolled up to the curb outside Westside Grill where Ellie waited tables. I watched from across the street as the driver explained she'd been nominated for a foundation scholarship. Ellie's face went from confusion to cautious hope. She hesitated, then slid into the back seat. Inside the Harrison Foundation offices, Nora greeted her with practiced charm. "We don't just look at grades," she said. "We look at character resilience." Ellie shifted nervously in her chair, brushing invisible dust from her thrift store sweater. She didn't know yet that the man she'd met on the bus was about to walk through the door. When I stepped in wearing a suit instead of my shabby disguise, her eyes widened. "Wait! James," she blurted, calling me by the fake name I'd given her. Nora's head whipped between us in confusion. Ellie stood, her voice sharp with betrayal. "So you lied to me on the bus, then stalked me to my job, and now what? You dressed this up as charity." Her folders trembled in her hands. I felt the weight of her anger deserved every ounce of it. "I know how this looks," I said quietly. But yesterday, when you gave up your seat, when you helped that old man without hesitation, you reminded me of my mother. She raised me the same way with nothing but grit and kindness. I've been lost since she died. You cut through all that." Ellie's eyes narrowed. "So I'm just some experiment to make a rich man feel human again." Her words sliced clean. "No," I said, my voice cracking for the first time in years. "You're the reminder I needed that money doesn't buy meaning. I crossed a line and I'm sorry. But the scholarship is real. No tricks, no strings. If you want it, it's yours." She turned toward the door, then paused with her hand on the knob. "I'm not a charity case," she said firmly, "and I won't be your redemption story." Those words sat heavy in the room long after she left. 2 days later, I walked into that diner again, this time in the same worn jacket I'd worn on the bus. She spotted me right away, coffee pot in hand. "Here to spy on me again?" she asked dryly. "No," I said, sliding into a booth. "Here to ask for help." She raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "I don't want to throw money at problems anymore," I admitted. "I want to build something that matters. I want you to join the Foundation's Scholarship Board paid official reel, because you see people in ways I forgot how to." Ellie studied me for a long moment, then set the pot down. "If I do this," she said slowly, "there are rules. No background checks, no secret cars, and you treat me like an equal." "Got it." I couldn't help but laugh, relief flooding through me. Got it. 6 months later, she was sitting at the head of a conference table running her third scholarship committee meeting, like she'd been doing it for years. Under her guidance, we added mentorship programs, emergency funds, internships that actually paid. She wasn't just changing lives, she was changing me. And somewhere along the way, between coffee runs and late-night planning sessions, friendship turned into something deeper. I'd catch her looking at me across a stack of applications, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like more than a balance sheet with a pulse. One Friday afternoon, sunlight spilled into the office as the city bus rumbled past on the street below. I handed her a cup of coffee and said, "My mom would have liked you, you know. She would have seen through all my nonsense in a heartbeat, just like you did." Ellie reached across the table, her fingers curling around mine. "Then maybe she'd be proud of who you're becoming." I didn't have an answer, just a smile that felt honest for once. Now I've got to ask you, was I wrong to deceive her in the beginning, even if it led us here? Is it ever okay for someone with power and money to bend the rules when the intention is to help? Or does that cross a line you can't uncross? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I want to hear them. Have you ever witnessed a small act of kindness that changed everything? And don't forget, if you believe kindness is rarer than gold, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that remind us what really matters.